Being behind, I think that's the feeling that a lot of people recently, and at least from what I've seen on social media, myself, my own personal qualms about it and whatnot. But I think being behind is it's a very important topic that I wish to kind of talk, discuss. I'm not really sure, how you would really describe this sort of talk into the void, so to speak. But I wanted to kind of talk about this because this is kind of a topic that has been on my mind for quite a bit. Um, Recently, and I know in the last video, it's kind of ironic, I guess. In the last video, I was trying to give some hope. Um, but in this video, I guess I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit of, the hopelessness, right? I guess it kind of balances my own mindset out a little bit, so to speak, because when I talk about, staying positive, right? I did kind of touch on the fact of being toxically positive. And I think there is a sort of floor to it, right? I believe that there is a sort of situation where you can delude yourself to the point where, nothing gets done, or you maybe haven't been critical of yourself or haven't made too many uh, points of reflection for yourself when it comes to situations like this, right? Regardless, that's a bit of a tangent, but I thought I'd kind of dive a little bit deeper into, falling behind, the feeling of falling behind. I know there's a lot of people out there right now that are probably feeling this sort of feeling, you know, I'm behind. I'm 5 years behind. Let's make it kind of, I guess, relevant to the job market, right? Oh, I need 5+ years of experience. Um, you need to be an absolute math wizard in order to get into something like quant. Or you need to be coding since you were a toddler when you're trying to get into software engineering. Things like that. Or, I guess maybe something that I've really seen a lot is, the housing market. People are saying like, oh, I should have, I should have bought into real estate, when I was 10 instead of playing with Hot Wheels or Legos or something like that, right? There's a sense of feeling behind, and I think it's emphasized through social media, in my opinion. I mean, that's arguable, I'm sure, but it's very much something that's on the top of mind of everyone. And I think, feeling behind is a valid feeling. I'll take it for example with what I'm dealing with currently. I'm currently, I guess, in the process, as I mentioned in my last video, in the process of going back into the job market. And I'm preparing for interviews. I'm working on my technical skills, my technical abilities. I guess to kind of put it out there, kind of keeps me honest. So someone in the comments, like comment section, I guess like a year from now, can probably ask me, "Hey, did you get into this?" Uh, but the thing that the job, the position that I really want to get into, the job that I really want to get into, um, is very technical. For the longest time, I've been very, very interested in the financial markets. I've taken a liking to it ever since I was a kid. My dad introduced me into it, mainly just as a personal thing. He was like, "Hey, you got to know how to invest. You know, retirement. Understand how Roth IRAs work, stuff like that." But I guess I kind of took it one step further and really started, indulging myself into the forex markets. I had a phase of, like that. Um, but regardless, it's a bit of a tangent, but I do want to get it into the financial markets, not investment banking. Not, I don't want to be slaving away 80 plus hours just looking at Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints. I want to do something that's meaningful, understanding the markets. And what I mean by that is, something on the quantitative side, a quant, so to speak. I'm sure if you've ever watched the movie The Big Short, there's that, Asian guy, and Ryan Gosling kind of hypes him up as, his quant, right? His character, Ryan Gosling's character, at least. That's what I'm looking into. I know, very stereotypical Asian of me, but it's something that I've always been interested in. I guess I just never really knew it. I never really put the terminology to the position, I guess, if that makes sense. I always wanted to, I know I always knew that I wanted to go into something financial, and I always knew that I was interested in data, um, understanding, just coding, understanding how to build things, how to solve problems. But I never really knew, if there was a job like that out for me in the job market. And initially I wanted to go into something like sales and trading. I did some networking. I went to some events. Met some people, talked to some people. Uh, went to New York City for that stuff and everything like that. But as I kind of slowly found out, and I slowly started, talking to more and more people in that, I guess, section of the financial markets, in that division of positions, I found myself realizing that a lot of these people didn't really do what I wanted to be doing, right? Combining math, finance, and coding. There was one guy that I actually did talk with, really cool guy. And but the thing is that he learned Python on the job. He's like one out of like the 30 plus people that I met out of, that entire networking event that actually knew how to code. Um, so, when I kind of realized that I was in the wrong area, I guess I kind of took a step back and really limited myself. Um, and I think this is kind of a great context for me to go into, more of what I want to talk about, of the feeling of feeling behind. Because the feeling of feeling behind is actually just you limiting yourself, in my opinion. Most of the time, it's just you limiting yourself. You give yourself deadlines, you give yourself these dates, that you have to get this stuff done. You compare yourself to other people, and you create this sort of concoction of, the never-ending pursuit of wanting to achieve more, but then also giving yourself a limit. Like, oh, within 2 years, that's it, you know? And I see this a lot on the internet as well. But I think from a more personal, from a personal take, I've seen this with myself a lot as I kind of reflect. Um, you know, I always kind of put a time limit to myself. Like, for example, recently, I'm looking through all the material that I need to look through in order to be fully prepared, for quant interviews. And I find myself kind of limiting myself, you know. And what I end up doing is, as of the time of this recording, it's around March, right? And close to April, and I plan to start applying to jobs, I would say, between the May August timeline. And I basically give myself this timeline, and I say, oh my God, I only have 2 months. And I essentially limit myself and try to cram all this information, and search up tutorial videos and do this and do that. And then I find myself not enjoying the process. And on top of that, I don't even find myself building things out of curiosity, especially in Python, especially in coding, right? The majority of the majority of your effort, right? The majority of your effort and the majority of your learning comes from building things. And usually it comes from building things that interest you. And I find myself not really being interested in what I'm doing or building at all. I try to make projects that are just so quant heavy, like an automated trading bot or a back tester, or something of that sort, right? Um, and I find myself not enjoying the process. Just the other day, I took a step back and I said, I'm going to code today with no strings attached. And then I ended up creating a couple of files where I connected, Python, um, 3.10 plus. I'm using 3.13 right now. I connected Python to Minecraft. Specifically the CurseForge version of Minecraft, but regardless, it's Java. But I launched Minecraft through CurseForge. I have a lot of cool mods on there and stuff, right? But I find myself doing that, and I actually enjoy it, and it just it sort of made me want to do more. And I realized that that was kind of what I've been missing, you know, is I'm not even enjoying the process, and that's why I feel behind because I'm looking for results. I'm looking for what can I do within the next couple of weeks that will basically give me things that I can push onto my GitHub and stand out to to an HR person, right, via my resume, right? What's going to stand out to a recruiter? And that's important, don't get me wrong, that's extremely important, but it limited myself. I limited myself, and I basically had this perspective of just results, just wanting results, and never really enjoyed the process. So I think for anyone out there that, feels like they're behind, there are multiple, I guess there are multiple explanations to feeling behind. I think I wanted to kind of just focus more on the feeling behind while doing something. There are some people who are out there feeling behind because maybe they can't get started or they don't know where to go or they don't know how to start or they don't know what to do, what to start on. But I guess in this certain circumstance and in this video, I guess I kind of wanted to emphasize feeling behind, the feeling of being behind, um, in the context of I am already doing something, but I still have that lingering feeling. I still have that lingering feeling of being behind. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to come on here and say. Regardless, I think honing in a little bit and reflecting on that sort of hopelessness, on that sort of feeling of feeling hopeless, is definitely important. I think I just recently kind of came to this revelation that, I just wasn't enjoying what I was doing. Not to say that the past couple of, past couple of months, half a year that I have been studying, to get back into the job market and prepare for these quant interviews. It's not to say that, I didn't learn anything. I definitely did. And it's noticeable in, the things that I do, leak code, my daily work routine, right? When I go to my 9 to 5, the things that I built, specifically, I guess the Minecraft one, the Minecraft and Python connection, that one was pretty cool. I might show that actually on this channel at some point. But regardless, that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I think it's important, to definitely reflect and take the time to understand, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Because it's good to have discipline, and discipline is key to consistency, but it's also good to understand and enjoy the process. And I think it's a really good, it's a very hard balance between the two, when you do have to balance the two, where you have to be disciplined. And, this is something that I'm struggling with myself, I would say, where you have to be disciplined. And, I give myself a rigid schedule and I say, okay, I'm going to do it at this, I'm going to do this at this time, and I'm going to do that at this time. And, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do that today. And, it comes to a point where I have the discipline, but I don't feel like I'm really enjoying the process, and maybe it takes me a little bit longer to learn something because I'm not enjoying, right? I think the whole point of learning, right, is to not only better yourself, of course, but the whole point of, I guess the feeling of learning, you are supposed to enjoy the process. You are entitled to that, and you are supposed to. And I think that's something that we have, maybe as a generation have kind of missed, because everything is very much, we want overnight successes, we want results, we want these things that will stand out to the recruiter, whatever, right? We want all this, we want money to buy a house, things like of that nature. So I think it's important to kind of take a step back and actually truly enjoy the process and not focus so much on the result. I think that's something that, not only am I missing, and I've kind of come to that revelation, I guess, myself, but I think it's something that, we're also missing as a generation. I see this a lot with my generation, I would say. I have a couple of friends who, they very much focus on the result, and you can tell that they're very driven, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But, a lot of them are looking into different job opportunities. They're just applying, but they're not, maybe they're not focusing on, you know, curating that resume or that cover letter or something like that, right? I have a couple of friends who are just sending hundreds of applications a week, and, nothing has really come to fruition for them. And, they feel hopeless, in that sense, because they're looking for the result, but they're not really enjoying the process. I mean, I don't know, I don't know of any recent undergrad that really enjoys the recruiting process. I myself went through like 7 different rounds of interviews for my current job. Um, but regardless, the point kind of still stands. Um, I guess there should be a sort of, maybe not enjoyment, but also the thoughtfulness, right? There should be some thought put into your resume, put into your cover letter, or something like that, right? If that's the context that we're going down. But um, yeah, I see this a lot with my generation, and it's a completely valid feeling. I mean, I think because of how fast the world moves, I think it's difficult to focus just on the process, right? It is difficult, um, but I think it's a good reminder for us every once in a while, at least. I think it's a good reminder for people that you know you can take a step back. You're not behind. Um, you can take that break, right? Don't go all the way. Don't go 3 weeks. Getting away, trying to get away from all of your woes, right? Don't do that, right? There's a certain point of overindulgence, but I think you can take a break. You can take a step back, or at least reflect. You know, am I doing what I want to do? Am I enjoying the process? Um, and it is important, not only to just our overall growth, but I think it's important just for mental health reasons. I would say it's especially important for me just from on the mental health front, so to speak. Um, I would say recently, and it's kind of, I guess, one of the inspirations for making this video. Recently, I guess I've kind of lost sight of the process of enjoying the process and grinding it out, and um, I kind of internalized all these thoughts of, oh, I'm grinding it out, I'm doing all this work, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and nothing's coming to fruition. And I went on this really big, like, downward spiral, I would say, just internally. And then I kind of had to take a step back. I went to the gym. That's important too. I highly recommend go to the gym, get a workout in, um, get the blood flowing in the brain. And then I kind of took a step back, right? And I realized, I was like, all of what I felt was valid, but I think at the same time, that wasn't the right approach. That wasn't the correct response. That's I shouldn't be internalizing that. Instead, I should be saying to myself, "Hey, you know, you're doing all this work, but what have you gotten out of it? What have you learned, right? What has made you grow as a person? What skills have you learned, right? Technical skills. You're doing all this grinding, right? You're grinding it out at work, you're grinding it out after work, right? You're doing all the, I'm at least that's what I'm doing. I'm I'm effectively working after work. right? And regardless, what is your end goal? And how can we, how can I make my time more effective, more efficient, right? Am I enjoying what I'm doing right now? Should I just take a break? Should I take a step back and say, you know what? I'm going to take a couple of days, you know, and clear up my mind, focus on something else, and move on, right? And then after that, I can get back into what I was originally doing. I think it's important because mental health wise, I was definitely at a point where I was like just not enjoying what I was doing and not really um, wanting to do I guess wanting to do what I kind of set myself originally, what I vowed for myself to do. Um, so I think it's important. I definitely think it's important. So, well, anyways, regardless, look, more to come on this channel. I hope that whoever watches this, I hope it helps. You're not alone if you're feeling behind. It's a valid feeling. Everyone at some point, I think, is going to feel that feeling. But don't give up. There's definitely there's things that's gonna happen. So it'll all come into fruition. All right then. Till the next one.